All right. So just to remind you, the workbook is again available to you, and it has some additional information to the slides. When we finish the workshop, we will be posting both the slides and the video, which Charlie puts up on YouTube, and he'll send you a link to that. And the exercises are in the Slack page, which you can see below. I sent an email this morning to remind you, and I included the Slack link in case you can't find Slack on your computer or something like that. So we are, at the end of today, we'll be at the halfway mark. We will have done part of the marketing piece. We're going to actually spend 2 sessions working on marketing because there's so many marketing tools that are available to us. And I'm actually going to add in a tool, which is the business model canvas, which is a different way of developing a business plan than a full-blown formal plan. So particularly if you're not looking for funding, if you're not looking for a loan or some sort of business support, financial business support, and you don't want to actually go through the full writing a narrative thing just for yourself, then the business canvas can be really useful. So we'll talk about that next week. Okay. So today we're going to focus on looking at the competitors and looking at developing a marketing message. We're also going to talk a little bit about pricing. So to start with, we're going to look at this competitors information that is on the form that looks like this. So we have 2 pieces of information. One is going to be what are the actual features of the competitor, and then the next piece is going to be to actually look at your comparison of your offerings to your competitors and to see where are your strengths versus your competitors. So you may have found as you were looking at your competitors that they have some different ways of doing your offerings. They may not all be one-on-one direct, exactly the same features and functions of your business. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at, what are these different features, and you can then compare how many or what is the quality of the features that you feel your business has compared to your competitors. If you think that you're on par, then you can mark it with a 0. If you think that you are a little bit better, you can put a plus mark, or if you're a lot better, you can put more plus marks. If you think you don't have as much to offer in this particular area, then you can put a negative mark. So we can look at features, we can look at pricing, we can look at the quantity of sales. This might be a little bit hard if you haven't actually started your business yet, but you may be able to take a guess or an estimate. You can look also at what you think of their marketing strategy. In other words, how do they reach out and contact their potential buyers, and also anything else related to the way that they do business compared to the way that you do business. Okay. Anybody have any questions about any of this? Does this make sense? Sometimes these terms are a little too vague till you're really comfortable with them. You're like, what did that mean again? But it's hard to do the exercise if you're not quite sure what the questions mean. Okay, so if you want to go out to Slack, then you'll find these tools are in the usual channel for the exercises. So go to the Slack page for and look for the channel called Class Exercises Session 3. If you can't see that, then you can go up to the top and use the search box. Just touch the name SCORE SSTSYB, which of course is the initials because the class has a long name, and then start typing in class-exercises, and you should be able to find that that channel. So in that channel, you're going to find at the top, you're going to find a couple of tools, the competitive comparison chart. And so what you want to do here is look at those features that you were looking at in your competitive research from homework, and then start comparing them to your competitors. And again, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. So you're going to spend a couple of minutes working on this on your own, and then you can go into the breakout room and talk about it with your partner. You might have some just ideas that you want to kick around, or questions you want to ask, and sometimes it's really useful to have a sounding board for that. Okay, so we'll have 10 minutes to do the exercise, and then we'll come back and we'll debrief about it. Okay, and so Charlie will put us in our various rooms. And we have a bunch of SCORE mentors here with us today, so you will probably have a mentor in your room as well. So you can get some more information from them as well.
We're about to form the rooms. Some rooms will have some rooms will have 2 people. Some rooms will have 3. Okay. Here we go.
Enough time. We were having
Yeah, we were mid-sentence too.
I was like, 10 minutes is not enough.
That was a fast 10 minutes.
It was.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out a way for you to wave at me and say we need more time. Good. So what did you did you learn anything interesting in your chat with your classmate?
Well, we my classmate and I, Ms. Baker, I can't pronounce her first name, it's embarrassing. We were talking about how does she price a product. She's in the food business, and somebody asked her to make something, which she did. But how does she price it? And I said there are many ways, but one of them is for the future to go look at a high cost deli, look at ShopRite, look at McCaffrey's, look at them. They all sell prepared foods, and see what they charge. And they charge by the pound. So that's all factored in, all of your costs are factored in. So we were talking about that. Interesting. A lot of people don't view it that way, but that's the easiest way to get pricing for some of those, for that type product. Anyway, we had a great chat and we weren't finished, but we had a
Thanks, Ed.
Well, yeah, you know, this is the good news about having a SCORE mentor, is you can have a whole hour all to yourself.
Yes. I can't wait till my appointment's coming up very soon.
Oh, good, good. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody have any struggles with this? So a couple of people didn't get into their rooms. You know, you don't have to be ashamed if you don't have your homework. You can just, you know, glom onto your classmates' learning.
Kathleen, I just shared with Ed that I didn't understand a lot, like you had mentioned, I didn't understand a lot of the Ian's Nursery analysis, but the articles that you sent regards to the pricing, they were very good. The literatures were very good. And it was the first time I've heard of the umbrella pricing. I never heard of umbrella pricing. So those articles were really good.
Yeah, there's a couple of good webinars, which, and I've added some links. I moved them, by the way, the ones that you talked about, Sinead, I moved them to the marketing channel.
Okay.
So hash marketing. And over the weekend, I added a couple of other resources from SCORE. And there's another video that I don't know if I posted it yet because I was watching it myself, and it's a webinar from a woman who's talking about pricing. It's really, really good. I think it's the best one I've seen so far. So I'll check. If it's not already up there, then I will post that one later today. Okay. You know, sometimes I get caught up. I start reading this and then I go research something else, and then I'm down a rabbit hole, and you know, and then I have a senior moment. So sorry about that.
Kathleen, also mention that on the February 18th, Scorebucks County will have a Sips and Tips at 7 p.m. Talk about money matters, but the subject this time is going to be pricing.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So there's, I think pricing, yeah, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today. I think that's one of the hardest parts of any business is figuring out what is that sweet spot of pricing. But we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, is there any other questions, comments, emotional outbursts about marketing comparison? How did you feel about going out and doing some marketing research?
I'll speak to that. I had just raised my prices in January, and it was like, I think the third raise I've given myself in 18 years, right? 3 raises in 18 years. And I felt really uncomfortable raising my prices because it's been a year of COVID and everything else, but I was gonna go out of business if I didn't. And I did the research, and I'm still way underpriced. Way underpriced. So, and I'm really good at what I do. Like, I just am. So there's no reason for me to not feel confident about charging more. And yet I've been way undercharging, even after just raising my prices. So what do you do in that case? I mean, you can't just raise your prices and then raise your prices again. Right?
Well, there's different ways of doing that. So for instance, you might just raise your prices for newer clients.
Right.
Instead of for your existing clients, and continue to offer them, as if it was a discount.
What is your
it's really, pricing sends an important signal. It's not just, your form of income. It's also a signal that says this is what you're worth. And I may have told you guys this story last week, so stop me if I did. But I used to work in a company, that I was a subcontractor to, and we did a lot of work for a big medical device biopharmaceutical company. And they and this woman that I did this work for, she always wanted to save the customer money. I swear to God, she would have slept in a tent in the parking lot if she thought it would have saved the customer money. Not me. I needed a proper hotel room. But we would have this argument because there were times when we would bid on a particular project within this company, and we had a good relationship, with many different areas in the organization. But other people, especially male-owned companies, would bid much higher prices, even though they weren't nearly as good as we were. But people assumed because they were more expensive, they were better. Okay. And I particularly encourage you as women who are offering your services. Now, this is service-based work. I mean, if it's something that's a physical product and it's very commoditized, then, if you're just offering a loaf of bread, you really have to add some value to that loaf of bread to make it, be able to charge a much higher price. And it's not that you can't, which is why people pay, $5 for a coffee at Starbucks when you can go down to McDonald's and get, what many people think is a pretty decent cup of coffee for, $1.50 or whatever it is. So there's definitely the je ne sais quoi, that additional feature that you add in. And remember that most of the time when we're buying, and this is one of the reasons I really liked this video, we are buying an emotional experience. So it's not just that you're going to get a physical thing. It's, how is it, what is my interaction with this thing? It varies a lot. How do you interpret that? It's hard to genericize that, when you're talking about every single kind of business that there could be here. I mean, here in this room, we have a very wide variety of businesses that people are trying to start. So what happens is when we try to, put it all into a matching column, then it comes down to things that are easy to compare dollar to dollar. And so we assume that everything is dollar based. And this is a mistake economists have been making for literally a century. is that they assume everything is boilable down to dollars, and that we make all of these decisions based fully on what's the most dollar-wise economical thing. And behavioral economics economists who mix in psychology and say, okay, let's test that, something real economists or traditional economists don't do. And when they test it, they find out that all those economic theories are total bunk. It's not the way people react. Unless they've been taking too many economics classes, in which case they think this is the way you're supposed to react and it's the right answer. But in real life, they still don't react that way.
Lisa, what is the product that you sell?
I'm a holistic trauma specialist. I specialize in working with people with PTSD and trauma without medication, and people that want to do a natural alternative to that.
That's a tough product to price. I can understand it.
I'm charging sometimes less than half of what other people are charging, apparently. So, yeah.
You might want to rethink that. Yeah. No,
So Lisa, one of the things you can try is announce ahead of time, like as of July 1st, your prices are going to go up. And your clients start to think about that your prices would be going up. And also at the same time, they try to fill up the time prior to that date. And at that time, you can offer them some discount moving forward, but your prices have already gone up.
Yeah. I'm rethinking the whole structure of my pricing to be more of packages than hourly sessions one by one, to just do packages where they, a certain duration of time and price is built in, so they know what they're looking at as a whole. I think I'll be able to change the pricing as I change that structure, and that way it's kind of more comfortable for both of us. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So one of the things that can really help with this is to work on your actual product and service description. And there's many ways to do this. But one of the most basic ways is to simply start listing out what are the specific benefits and features of your particular product. Now, for yourself, you also want to know what are your limitations, and remind yourself of things like, well, how would I be delivering this particular product? Some people are offering more than one product. And so depending on the nature of your business. So Synidia is going to be in, producing meals or food or food services. I don't know if I'm not sure if you're doing catering or retail.
I just did catering first time over the weekend.
Okay. Yeah. So you might have more than one product. In other words, different kinds of catering engagements that you're doing.
Right. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Some people, have a much smaller number of services that they provide. But if you look, you probably are going to find that there's a few different differentiations. And so it becomes important to start writing this stuff down. There's a temptation to believe that all the stuff in your head is really well defined. And I challenge you to do this, because you'll find that once you start writing down, you're going to kind of go, yeah. And so there's a thought process, and writing helps to develop that thought process. Okay. Yes. Because your prefrontal cortex can only hold a few things at a time, but paper can hold a great deal more. So use the paper. Digits are fine. You can, you don't have to, you can use, your word processor or something like that as well. That's perfectly okay. Okay. So you can use a tool, again, this tool is just a small listing of some of the most important features that we want to work on. And I wish that I could give you more details about how to write your product, your special benefits, for example. But because your businesses are all going to be so varied, there isn't anything that's particularly formulaic about it. However, what you can do is you can go back to your marketing research and see how your competitors are already doing this. They're listing these things on their website. They're listing these things in their brochures. They're talking about these things. Start looking at, sort of what are the things that they're listing and how does it strike you? Which are the ones that seem to really, cause a little bit of a stir in yourself. You say, oh yeah, that's really good. And so you want to look at it, maybe think of yourself as you're the marketing professor. How would this strike me if I were to grade this? As well as, maybe if you were looking at this as a marketing research, which of these things is causing that kind of reaction? People are doing some fascinating research these days. I mean, like nowadays, rather than just asking people questions, they're actually watching their eye movements to see, what they're really being drawn to and attracted to, because our brains don't always catch up, the word part of our brain, the explaining part of our brain with what we're doing. And sometimes we kind of go, I don't know if I really want to say that out loud. That might sound silly. But if you kind of examine yourself, it's okay to feel silly to yourself. Notice which of these things are really striking you as the most important pieces. Okay. So I want to spend just a few minutes working on this. Again, we have another tool that's out on Slack, and this is your product and service description. And here, what I want you to do is just focus on your special benefits and unique features. Pick one of your products. You don't have to do all of them. Just pick one, and you can use this form for as many times as you want. If you have 10 products, then you should have 10 of these pages. But just pick one for today so that we can sort of practice it. And again, we're going to go back into our breakout rooms. We're only going to have 10 minutes, so make sure you're sharing your time and use that judiciously. Part of being a good business owner is you're going to have to learn to be very, very time effective, because you are your own manager. And so you have to make sure you're using your time on things that are really going to add value. And then share some of your ideas about your benefits and unique features. And maybe your partner can help you sharpen up that language. Okay. Ready, Charlie?
Yep, we're all set.
Let's go.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
Hello.
Yeah, we're back. We are back. There's Christine. There's Maria. Okay. Sherry.
All right, welcome back, everybody.
Okay.
So how was it to try and describe your key features? Did anybody have a list? Were they able to, come up with the sort of really succinct bang, 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 bang bullet points? This is why it's really helpful to write, because when we talk, we keep elaborating and going down different paths. When you write it down, though, you can start to edit it, and then you'll memorize what those points are. They're going to be really useful as part of your elevator speech, but they'll also be really useful for your web page or for your other marketing kinds of materials. But on top of that, they're also going to be those things that you're going to constantly go back to and say, these are my value adds. How do I emphasize and focus on these? And the clearer your objectives are, the easier it is to know where to target your energy. Okay. So when I teach people about objectives, I say your objectives are the bullseye, and they're going to help you figure out if you're on track. And whenever you come to a point where you're really struggling with a decision, even if it's like, I have so many things to do, which one is my priority? Then those objectives become your decision-making tool, because the way you use it is you say, which of these activities is the one that gets me closer to my target? And you want to make your objectives very, very specific and very, very measurable. In other words, when you finished with your objective, you have to be able to physically show me something that says you achieved it. Like you could put it in a box, even if it's a piece of paper. What is it that's in the box that says, yes, this is I know I hit my bullseye because this is what happened. They're not vague. I don't want to, sort of, if this happens, it's sort of my goal. No, an objective is very specific. Okay. And the more specific you can be with your objectives, the easier it is to tell yourself, am I on target? Am I not on target? And it's okay if your objectives change over time. But if you've got them written down, you'll know that they've changed. You say, you know what? That's not serving anymore. It's time to change. And that's perfectly okay. But you'll know whether you're chasing the right thing or not. If not, then the target's going to keep moving. How does that sound? Does that sound effective? Moving targets, very hard to hit. Very hard to hit. All right, let me get my screen back up here. So, questions, comments, emotional outbursts from this last exercise? Your special benefits, your unique features. Anybody have one that they'd like to share? Simple, but hard. Right? It's a simple thing, but it's hard. Just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Right? Sometimes getting to that granularity. Go ahead, Christine.
All right. At long last, and thank you for your patience, I found my bulleted list.
Oh, good.
Of my business, and my business is, I'm a professional writer. So the unique benefits I offer are the ability to help tell your story in a compelling way, to identify your brand voice and target audience, to craft a compelling professional brand that highlights your unique offer, strengths, and skills, and to reach hiring managers, clients, and prospects on the right channels.
That was really good. Right? Do you feel the succinctness, right? So there are ideas that I can sort of wrap my brain around. They're not so long that I have to really parse and formulate, right? They're distinct ideas. I can focus on them, and then I can figure out, can I hit these targets? What am I offering specifically that's going to demonstrate these to my clients? And it doesn't matter whether it is, a lovely catered meal or a LinkedIn page or any other service or product that you're providing. You can figure out what these particular benefits are and why somebody should do business with you.
So, Kathleen, I have a suggestion here.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the TV show Shark Tank, not from what specifically is being talked about, but if you watch it, maybe 3 or 4 shows about 10 or 15 products or services, you would get similar questions repeated. Why you're doing this? What is the special thing about your product or service? Who is going to buy it? How are you going to deliver it? Do you have an IP protection on it? Is somebody going to copy your ideas? And things like those. And that, from a systemic perspective, it's a very valuable lesson for anybody who wants to start a business.
Right. So the why question is incredibly powerful to answer. Why is a very uncomfortable question to, when it's directed at us, So if I say, Christine, why are you wearing a black jacket today? Right. Now, just kind of check in with your belly. Did that feel really uncomfortable? Everybody. It wasn't just Christine, probably. Everybody was like, ooh, what an icky question, even though it's not really a terrible question, right? But that's because you probably said, why are you questioning her motivation, right? Instead of, what's the underlying reason? It doesn't have to do with, like a judgment, okay? So that's why is a hard question, but a great answer. Now, one of the best things that I've ever seen about the why question is Simon Sinek's book. He wrote a book called Start With Why. And for those of you who don't have time to read the whole book, of course, there is a fabulous TED Talk, 18 minutes. I will put the link for that TED Talk on our Slack page. And I highly recommend that you watch it. It's really, really powerful because he talks about how that why question is so valuable. And we have a tendency to go right to the what or the how. But what people really want to know is why. And he talks about how Apple brands itself with a why answer instead of a how or a what question. So first why, and then we can supplement that with what or how. But Americans, we tend to want to we think we're cutting to the chase. So we're just going to go right to the how we're going to do something or what we're going to do. But why is what gives things importance. It's what gives things meaning. Right? So it's really a useful thing. I have to write myself a note so I don't have a senior moment. Otherwise, I won't remember until the next time we're meeting. All right, so let's talk a little bit about pricing. Who here is really comfortable and happy with, you know, the ways you're going to do your pricing? Who's not? Who's feeling a little, yeah, not so comfortable with all of that? Okay. Right. So there's a couple of different models that you can use for ways of doing pricing. Okay, and depending on the nature of your service, you can start with a different one. So if you've got a clear view of the market, then the easiest way is to figure out what the market price is, and the market price is the average of what all of the other competitors are doing. When things become totally commoditized, then that starts to become really, really averaged. Okay, so that's why when you have certain products that are easy to exchange for one another, they're called commodities, and there's a whole markets called commodities markets where they trade things like, you know, crude oil and pork bellies and other very, very commoditized kinds of things. But all things have, you know, that have you know, some sort of competitive market have sort of a regular average if you can get at the data. Okay. The other ways that you can think about pricing are looking at, you know, what are your costs, and then what are, you know, how do you add your profit on top of that? And that seems to most people like the easiest way to do their pricing. Unfortunately, you have to be really, really specific about knowing what all of your hidden costs are. Okay, so if you're selling retail stuff, then, you know, not just the cost of the, you know, the shirt that you're going to sell that you bought it wholesale and now you're going to sell it retail, but the shipping, the time that you took to get it, the, you know, the other things you have to add on, like packaging or price tags or, you know, all of those stuff, not to mention your marketing, your sales force time, you know, the labor and all of that other, and then of course taxes. So you really have to work to find what all of those things are. Now, when you're in the service business, this can be even trickier because you have a lot of other, you know, we think, oh, well, I'm just going to have my, you know, my hourly rate. But you're probably, whatever service you're in, you're probably not going to just automatically line up 8 hours a day at your rate for a consistent, you know, 50 hours, 50 weeks out of the year. That's just not generally the way services do work. If you had that level of commitment already, then you're an employee, even if you're being paid on a 1099. And if you're working for one person at one rate consistently at that time, yeah, you can legally do that for 6 months in Pennsylvania before they have to put you on a W-2. Okay. So you have to figure out what all those other additional products and and factors are related to your cost. And as I said earlier today, setting your prices too low, while it can be helpful to get you in the door, it becomes a real problem because now you have to start raising your prices. And our brains do something called anchoring. Anybody know what anchoring is? So anchoring is when we attach to a certain idea. So people have done experiments where they'll say, think about your birthday. And then they'll say, what do you think is the population of the state of Nebraska? Right. And so if you think about your birthday as a number, and then you start thinking about that, you're going to your brain is going to anchor to the last number that you looked at. So if the last number was your birthday, then that's going to be an anchor for you to figure out something. If something that you're just taking a wild guess on. You know, and I don't know if anybody here actually knows what the population of the state of Nebraska is. Most of us don't even know what the population of the state of Pennsylvania is. When you set a price, right, then your customers kind of think of that as your anchor. And so they're going to, keep going back and forth. Is this more expensive than the last price, the anchor? Is this less expensive than the anchor? So if you start too low, as some of you are already experiencing, raising your prices is really hard. And it's not just hard for your client, it's also hard for you because you've got some psychological value attachments to those numbers. And there's some tricks to kind of detaching yourself from that. Price wars is not a good thing for small businesses because we can't afford loss leaders. Okay, loss leaders are when you're actually underselling something so that you have other additional prices, other products and services that you're selling that you can do more business. Questions about this?
Question, Kathleen.
Yeah.
So I recently did a flat fee for gas. Could I label my gas in a better language of a convenience fee? Is that the same or?
So are you talking about like the amount of time you spend and money you spend traveling?
For mileage, I've been trying to set myself apart by being making it deliverable with the COVID and everything. And now with the snow, I've selling myself. I don't know if I am selling myself short, but I'm trying to at least be making my product more accessible by delivering it.
Right.
So I started charging gas fees. And I didn't like using that word, so I started using convenience fee. Could I do that?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. Yeah. So like, for instance, if you're working with most things that are mile based, then everybody uses the GSA's annual mileage number because the federal, every federal contractor has to use the same mileage rate. And then every state follows that same suit so that everybody uses the same number. I think it's, is it 60 cents this year per mile. I would not anchor to that.
Okay.
Because for anybody who knows that number, they're already fixated on that number. So I would call it a delivery fee or some other name like that. And again, you can bounce some more ideas back and forth with your mentor to figure out what's the right way of doing that.
Okay.
And, is it only mileage that is what's creating your ability to provide this service and actually costing you? And remember, your costs also include time because there's only one you.
Right.
And so if you're doing this, you're not doing something else.
Okay. I don't feel too bad because now it's just a matter of making it real convenient for them.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So you want to think about the word and what it connotes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So delivery fee versus convenience fee, right?
I think for me, convenience seems to be rolling over pretty good because everybody's who's not busy, but we're home, but we're all busy. So, and I put myself out there, for convenience. I do charge a convenience fee if you would like me to drop it off at your door. So I guess delivery, I could use delivery, but I don't want to put it out there as delivery because I don't want to always deliver it. But for someone who I know needs and wants it, I just make it convenient for them by charging them a little bit extra.
Good. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a good idea. And again, play around with the wording.
Oh yeah, I see
wording can make a big
difference.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
If convenience really seems to land well with your clients, then definitely go with that word.
Okay.
So
thank you.
The last exercise for today will be to actually start working on our pricing strategy. And so for you to start describing how is it that you come up with your prices? and how are you going to sort of use this? In other words, you need to sort of systematize this so that it continues to work for you. You don't want to have to reinvent this wheel every time you're doing business with somebody. For one thing, for most of us, this is very emotionally taxing. And you just don't need to exhaust yourself on this. So you need to sort of feel like you're comfortable with your value and that you have a sort of a comfortable justification, especially when you're talking to people, because that level of confidence shows up in your voice.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So last breakout, again, take a few minutes to write down something about your pricing strategy and then share this with your partners. And then we will come back and debrief.
And I believe, Kathleen, you said this is a 5-minute, or do you want to make it a 10-minute?
Let's make it 10 minutes.
Okay.
We're doing okay on time, so that's a good time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Yeah, us too.
Maybe I talk too much. I don't know.
This thing is vicious.
It's Charlie. I said, Nettie, they always catch me in mid-sentence here.
Yeah.
It's very rude, that Zoom. It says, time is time. I'm done.
He just pulls you right out.
Yeah.
All right. So
It's like the soup Nazi.
That's
Remember
it.
from
No soup
Seinfeld?
for you.
you don't get no soup.
No soup for you.
No Zoom breakout room for you.
That's it. That's it. Charlie's controlling our lives. It's Big Brother. It's big Zoom brother.
All right. So any useful nuggets from this exercise?
I'll let my two talk about it. Nettie, you want to go ahead?
The women empowerment meeting that you all have on Thursday nights, I definitely would like to.
Thursday morning. We'll send you something offline about that. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, Linda actually backed up the reason I was asking a question about delivering. I really want to make sure be convenient too, offer, having convenience being a unique benefit that I offer. So that was good to really, that it came up on a Monday after it had happened, because this is the first time for me. And at first I wanted to say no, but I have to tell myself, how am I going to stand out from the others? While, like Linda mentioned, Instacart and them are charging a phenomenal over the head kind of fees. I wanted to be fair at the same time, not short myself.
People pay for convenience.
Good. Yeah. So it can be really useful to sort of plan ahead for how you're going to be managing your prices and write yourself a plan and then make a date with yourself to look at it again next year or something like that. I'm not saying you absolutely have to follow that plan,
Right.
but you can, but if you've got it written down and you've committed yourself to, on such and such a day, I'm going to, take a look at my pricing and see what kind of adjustments. End of the year is whatever your fiscal year is a really good time to do that in preparation for your next year. Giving yourself again enough time to start, putting that out to your clients ahead of time. Give them a chance to adjust to it. You don't want to just suddenly send somebody a new bill and say, "Ha ha, here's here's this month's fees." That can be a really useful thing and it's a good habit to keep getting into. If you don't do it every year, then after a few years, you're going to look and go, "Oh my gosh, I haven't raised my prices in 10 years and I don't know how to do this."
Right. And just like Ed had said in Alberto, check with Amazon, who are at the highest, and also check with Walmart pricing to make sure we stay in the median.
Right.
So that was good. That was good.
Yeah. Warren Buffett apparently says that you should, that if you feel uncomfortable even raising your prices 10%, then that's something you really need to look at. But this is going to be easier when you have a customer base and you already feel that you have some real live people data to sort of share that with. Good. Anybody else have any other comments? I haven't heard from everybody, so I just want to give the other folks who may be on mute more a chance to have some airtime.
Well, I'll just say not to forget about if you're normally employed, the employer puts in 6.2% for your Social Security.
That's right.
So you have to account that as a contractor, you're on the hook for that additional 6.2%.
Right. And you're also on the hook for your own vacation days and your holidays and your sick days and, you know, your health insurance and all of that other stuff. So, you know what, I used to do a lot of work in systems development. And so oftentimes half the people on the team were contractors and half were employees. And the contractors, you know, on an hourly rate made over twice the hourly rate that the employees did. And the employees would, you know, kvetch if they found out that somebody else made $1 an hour more or the equivalent because they were salaried, you know, as an employee. But they did not concern themselves about the contractors. You know, they were like, yeah, they live on a different scale. Yeah, it's like they use a different brand of monopoly money than we do, because they understood that there are all these other expenses that they're not dealing with, like, you know, the time you have to pay yourself when you're not actually not working and you're looking for your next job. Yeah.
So Kathleen, I think one of the important aspects to keep in mind is to say, if this is your price today and it is the market price, what can you do to improve your product or service or make it more competitive and more differentiable? That is why you can raise the price.
Correct. And that's why that list of your unique features and benefits is really important, that you're constantly honing that, emphasizing that, selling that to your client and to yourself. Because sometimes we have to sell to ourselves, yeah, I'm really worth this. This is what I'm bringing to the table, right? So the next thing we're going to be thinking about, and we'll talk more about this next week, is, you know, what is the means of how I'm selling my business? You know, is this a direct sale to customers or a direct sale to another business? So for instance, my business was doing consulting and training. I sold to businesses. So I had a B2B business. I wasn't doing public training where I was, you know, selling to individual, you know, attendees or those types of things. You may have some sort of other business that sells to some sort of distribution process, or there's other means of doing these kinds of things. So internet is considered a different kind of channel because it can be a hybrid and because you have a different way of actually performing those sales things. So this is the next thing, you know, to think about. And some businesses, this is a pretty obvious, straightforward answer. And other businesses, it's a little bit unclear. What's important for you to start to recognize is that you may have different kinds of clients. And so even though you may have business to business clients, for example, I sold some of my services directly to large corporations. I sold some of them as a subcontractor to other consulting and training businesses. And sometimes I worked through universities that were doing you know, specific kinds of processes. And so I had a different way of marketing and pricing and organizing my businesses and a different emphasis of which products and services I was selling in each of those cases. So this is another thing that you kind of need to start thinking about, is how do I start dividing my market into these different channels or groups. Now next week when we work on the canvas, we'll get another way of approaching this. So we're going to kind of be doing a lot of the same kinds of things, but we're going to be looking at it from a slightly different perspective. Has anybody here ever seen the business model canvas? It's based on a work of a guy named Alexander Osweiler. It comes from this book. They've written a few different books, and they really have some great ideas in them. This is an entire book on how to use this tool, but I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version next week, and we'll talk a little bit about how we start this. It's a little bit confusing because you start in the middle. Most of the time we start, at the top or the left, and we kind of flow through that. But this is based on a tool called a SIPOC, which stands for Supply, Input, Process, Output, Customer. It's an acronym. I'll explain all of that to you next week. And so continue to work on these tools that we've talked about today as your homework, because they're all going to be useful for as inputs for the work we're going to be doing next week. All right, so we have a couple minutes left if anybody has any other questions.
So Kathleen, I have a question and possibly a comment. The outline that I'm looking at the screen, it seems like it's missing kind of an important aspect for starting a new business, and that is the technology. What do I use for accounting? Do I use QuickBooks or use something else? If I'm starting a restaurant, what kind of a cash register do I need? If I'm going to open a coffee shop, what would I need for the cash register? How it would be interfaced to my internet and things like those. Can you provide some good resource for that?
I have a few, but not all of them. And I'm happy to answer those questions. That's another great reason, of course, to have a mentor. And maybe we can put our heads together and figure
that's
out.
one of the problems I have. I am one of the mentors, and my customer is asking, and I don't have good way to describe to them.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to start a restaurant, and he says, well, what do I need for my cash register? What do I need to take the orders and things like those? And
there's some really interesting alternatives for restaurants these days. I mean, there's people who are actually, using tablets instead of menus,
right,
and some other things like that. It's really hard to ever write down technology stuff. There's a guy. I think he's still at Villanova, and I remember many years ago he wrote this definitive book of all of the software development tools back when people were doing case software development. And the minute he published it, it was out of date.
Right.
So
and yet you can use some of the tools because you can't afford the most latest one, and the old ones are still available and they work.
Yeah. So this is a constant dynamic changing thing,
right.
and that's why Charlie has just actually turned his camera on, because he has something to say.
Yeah, what the standard answer to any technology question from a customer is, it depends. That's why it's really hard to give any arbitrary small business a list of technologies, because it's very different. For example, if you're a retail store wanting to offer an online service, we may suggest Shopify. If you're a restaurant wanting to book clients, well, then you might want to go to something like an open table. But what I would urge you to do is to offer one-on-one mentoring with a client, and then drag somebody like me into the talk.
Okay.
All right.
That's a big help, because I'm about to get to that point probably in 1 or 2 sessions to say, all right, you're ready to start a restaurant. These are the additional things that you would need.
Yeah, and yeah, there may be some other ways that we can do some more sharing among the mentors too.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Share our secret knowledges, so we can kind of combine our research. Good. Yeah, so here's an actual page, a little bit about technology resources. So we do have a bunch of tech training for some of this stuff on the SCORE website. So if you are looking for information about technology, these are, you know, specific tools or classes of tools that different people have some expertise on and that are sharing some information about. Google is your best friend for stuff like this, but do check out the SCORE webpage. They have so many. It's real. I have to say, I'm really impressed, and I'm not easy to impress about how many different topics people have written in, you know, very short papers. I mean, these aren't big, long, you know, Forbes articles. These are just, you know, a few paragraph articles or little videos or webinars. So there's a lot of other useful tools that are available there. And so we're going to be working a little bit more. So again, your feasibility plan and your other marketing things, all of this stuff is going to then be put into that business plan. And the example is on the webpage, so you can look at the Ann's Nursery example to see what it actually looks like when you turn it into paragraphs. It's very simple. It's pretty easy to understand. We probably all, especially here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, have you know, experience with plant nurseries, so we know what that business must be like, even if you kill all the plants you buy. And so you can make sense out of that and see how that's applying. An example is a great way of sort of keeping, you know, relating what you're turning into something more concrete. And then we also have our workshop survey. So if you have more ideas for how we can make the class better for you, remember, we're only halfway there. So we have lots of room for improvement here. I'm a continuous improvement kind of person. Then please fill out the little Google feedback form that's on our Slack page, and stay in touch with us throughout the next 2 weeks over Slack. Post your ideas, chat with your classmates or with we mentors, and I will see you back here 2 weeks from today at 11:30. But I'll be out there on Slack every day if you have any other questions. And don't forget to get a mentor if you haven't got one yet. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sunny Sunday snow day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Kathleen. Great
Take
job.
care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.